philosophy roulette here. So yeah, what we do here, if anyone, I don't know if anyone's new here or whatever, what I do is we read philosophy and then we review it at the end. So this is What's So Good About Bad Art by Per Algander in the Philosophy Compass. Let's see, drop the music a little bit. I haven't read this before. This is the first time reading this. And so I will try to explain it as best I can. I'm not endorsing it. Just trying to figure out what's good and ask questions if you want along the way. And like I said, at the end, we'll see what's good or bad about it. And here we go. So my first time reading, let's go. Introduction. Two fundamental questions in aesthetics concern aesthetic value. What is it for an artwork to be aesthetically good, and how does an artwork value relate to its non-evaluative properties? Sockno says, what is bad art? Like, are we talking taxonomic or moral? Well, let's find out. I don't know what this person's going to say yet. I mean, like I said, I don't know. But they've started off already with what makes it good, and that could be moral or otherwise. And then, like, what else is there that is part of the art, but is not part of that like rubric of being good. Traditionally, answers to these questions have focused, you know what I can do also, like when we get these double-sided things, we can go like this. Yeah. Traditionally, his answers to these questions have focused on the aesthetically excellent. More recent attention has been turned to bad art, no doubt inspired by contemporary communities where people engage with and appreciate bad art. For example, it is not difficult to find film clubs dedicated to bad film, there are museums dedicated to bad art, and there's a community of people who seek out and play bad video and computer games. Okay, so you start to see, like, you see people play video games here on Twitch. Like one of my favorite streamers, although I don't watch him too much, a guy named In-Game Asylum, and a lot of what he does is he plays demos and things on like itch.io. So he's playing a lot of video games. A lot of them are bad, but he makes content out of them. He makes it fun for a stream, but he plays a lot of bad video games. And it's like, well, what makes them bad and why do you care? But like, you know, what's so good about it? Like, what is good about it? He makes it silly and fun. But like, is that him or is that the video game? These are the questions. Okay. And if you guys don't know In-Game Asylum, I should give him a shout out. Assuming I can spell his name. In-Game Asylum. Yeah, that's him. Alright, so I got it right. If you haven't seen this guy stream, he streams a lot. He's a partnered streamer or whatever, but he also does this thing where like these are bad games and they'll have like funny scenes or things will be broken, and he's a green screen wizard, like super genius green screen wizard, where he puts himself using a green screen into the scene. So like he becomes into the game and he's running around interacting with things on the screen. It's hilarious and fun, and you know, if you like this sort of interactivity with a video game, it's kind of cool. Okay. Anyway, in each of these examples, people engage with the object which are clearly aesthetically bad. With objects which are clearly aesthetically bad. Fucking editing, please. Even participants in these communities acknowledge this. Indeed, it is often claimed to be one of the principal reasons for engaging with these objects that they are bad. This is quite puzzling. We typically seek out and engage with things and activities which we believe to be aesthetically good, and when we give advice or recommendations to others, we justify these by pointing out good features rather than bad ones. People in these communities, however, seem to engage with aesthetically bad things partly because they are bad. Okay, I just realized. Maddie is like, how are they bad? Why are they bad? Keep in mind, I'm in this area too. We have read bad fucking philosophy on Philosophy Roulette. This actually happens quite often where we read bad philosophy on this program. We have rated things almost to like terrible. We've read terrible fucking philosophy here. And so, you know, it makes content. You're not at least for this. I'm reading it because it makes content to show why it's bad. Why something is bad can be good content. Or we can also laugh at it. You know, there was that person who was like cited Internet 2010 because they picked Wikipedia. They didn't even reference Wikipedia. They just referenced Internet 2010, and that became a meme in chat for a while where everything that was bad was like referencing Internet 2010. That, like, I have no problem reading bad philosophy sometimes because it does make good content in stream world, but like that's a different thing. Good stream, bad philosophy doesn't mean bad stream. Yeah. Okay, these practices raise 3 different but related questions. First, what is it that makes people want to engage with bad art? Stream content, I already told you. Second, are people who engage with bad art in some sense incorrectly doing so and thereby making a mistake? Thirdly, is there some special value in bad art such that it can be true that a work of art can be so bad that it is good? Yeah. Prof, what's up? Internet 2010 is just a reference in your brain. Exactly, but like, that was the thing. It was so funny because it was so stupid. And at that point, it becomes kitsch or like a camp. Like, people like stuff because it takes on a life of its own for being so silly. Yeah, Maddie, exactly. There's a difference, Maddie says, between entertaining bad stuff and boring bad stuff. Yeah, and that I hope this author gets to. Let's give a shout out to Prof. I mean, not that anyone here doesn't know him because I rate him basically every fucking time. But like, yeah, Prof streams Dark Souls or Souls-like content usually. Challenge runner, top 5 in the, like, number 5 in the world for like Bloodborne speedrun now, I believe. Very impressive. Most number of controllers, but also talks philosophy. So if you don't know Prof, give him a shout out. Yeah, and good use of the Naz emotes. Okay, this paper will focus on the third evaluative question. So they're going to focus on the, okay, what makes some stuff so bad that it is good? So we're going to get there. You don't just jump into this topic out with giving a definition of bad. In this author's defense, we are literally still in the introduction. So they're going to do that. We just have to give him a second. You know? That is one thing that is happening here that, like, ours alluded to this earlier. This is the philosophy compass. They are known for giving more overviews of topics like surveys. This is not exactly necessarily a super hardcore research. Even though it is doing research, it's also meant to give a bit more of a survey. And so the style of writing here is a little bit different. Couldn't do it without me? Well, I'm pretty sure you could play Souls without me. But like, yeah. Okay, so they are going to talk about what is so bad that it is good. Section 2 outlines some preliminary remarks about what we should expect an account of the value of bad art. So yeah, we're going to get there. We're getting there. Section 3 through 6 considers the putative value in bad art from the perspective of 4 approaches to aesthetic value: experiences, properties, reasons, and engagement. Section 7 concludes with some remark on the challenge of accounting for the value in bad art and the relevance of the question to contemporary philosophical aesthetics. Okay. So I'm not angry with this author yet. You can criticize them for, maybe going a little too fast, but we're literally on the first page still. Preliminaries. A natural way to approach the problem of the alleged value in bad art is to argue that what seems to be ascriptions of value to bad artworks should not be taken literally. Saying that something is good because it is bad is not really to say that it is good in the same way in which it is bad. And once we get clear about the different values which an artwork can exemplify, then it is easy to account for the value in bad art. Yeah, so if you say it's good in one sense but bad in another sense, that's fine. But that's probably not what is meant. Because if everyone was just like, okay, I mean it was good over here and bad over there, that's always the case. Aesthetic value is typically thought to be final, a value something has for its own sake or as an end. Final value is contrasted with instrumental value, which is the value a thing has as a means to something else which is finally valuable. A way to account for the value in bad art is therefore to say that bad art may be instrumentally good, for example by promoting some other value such as epistemic value. By engaging with bad artworks, studying the shortcomings of them, one can gain knowledge about what it is that makes other works good. And that's kind of like what I was saying about we read bad philosophy on this program and we make content out of it because we can point out the stupidities there and the silliness there and why like it's not so good. And that's part of like the value for streaming. And same with In-Game Asylum. He plays bad games and he laughs at them. He makes content with them to show like, oh, the silliness. Final is an interesting word. Yeah. So yeah, the final value, like whatever the ultimate understanding of it is. All right, alternatively, one might argue that the value in bad art is instrumental prudential value. Taking instrumental from Kant, one can distinguish between the beautiful and the agreeable. While bad art is aesthetically bad, engaging with bad art may nevertheless produce pleasant experiences. Insofar as pleasant experiences are good for a person, pleasure derived from bad art would to that extent have instrumental prudential value. On this instrumental view, the value in bad art is merely the instrumental value which a finally bad artwork may possess. Yeah, and so this just made me think, okay, porn has bad plot. The plot is not the point. It's not good art, but you're not watching it for the plot. You're watching it for other reasons. Okay. Author will refer to an account of the value in bad art along these lines as the instrumental view. They have in common that they identify the value in bad art with some instrumental value, but they differ with respect to which value this is. Vipers is watching for the pencils. I have a question about that, Vipers. So, like, do they have the pencils there on, like, stream? And, like, does the streamer show the pencils and be like, this is one of the pencils that you could buy. This pencil was in a special place. Like, that would be kind of fun. Be like, where did that pencil come from? We don't know where that pencil was. Okay. Josephine Mass says, art is typically expression in some way. I have a great reading visual communications. Yeah. Yeah. You'll put it in Discord. Thank you, Vipers. Okay. Okay, the strength of this view is primarily that it identifies some value in bad art, instrumental, and that it can explain how something can be good because it is bad. On the epistemic version, for example, is arguably via the badness of Plan 9, I don't know what Plan 9 is, which we come to gain knowledge, and on the prudential version, it is the badness of the film which we come to enjoy ourselves. However, the view also faces several challenges. Frank says pencils are actually just shaders all the way down. Well, everything's just turtles all the way down. But yes, also shaders all the way down. First, the instrumental view cannot explain why the phenomenon seems to be peculiar to aesthetic value. We have no reason to think that something can be so morally good that it is bad, for example, yet the instrumental view gives us no reason to expect that there should be this kind of difference between aesthetic and moral value. Yeah, so could something be morally bad but instrumentally good? And we normally don't think that, but wait, is that even wrong? Like, people eat that, like they eat endangered animals for like animals that are now endangered, or animals you have to like basically torture to get them to be in like an edible state, and then people eat it. So that would be morally terrible, but for the gustatory enjoyment, so can we say that like there's instrumentally, like morally heinous, but like, yeah, there's definitely got to be morally bad things that end up having instrumental good things about them. So I'm not sure about this claim right here. Maybe I'm misreading it. But they're saying it in the opposite way. I think that something can be so... We have no reason to think that something can be so morally good that it is bad, for example. Yet the instrumental view gives us no reason to expect that there should be this kind of difference between aesthetic and moral value. So there'd be something that would be so aesthetically good that it was bad. Like that, I'm sure this doesn't quite make sense to me. Josephine says, thinking of art as expression, Nirvana's guitar solos come to mind, and some of punk in general before them. That's fair. Yeah. So they're not doing the thing to be pretty. They're doing it for some other reason. And that would be instrumental. Yeah. Like, so you're trying to express some emotion. The emotion may not be a pretty emotion. It might be a dangerous emotion or something, but then you're getting the pure emotion through the music. And that, I guess, would be instrumental here. That would fit in. So that makes sense. Okay. Second, the instrumental view cannot explain why the phenomenon seems to be absent from aesthetic evaluations of nature. Aesthetic evaluations of nature, sunrises, birdsong, and so on, are typically not candidates for being good because they are bad. The instrumental view gives us no reason to think that there should be any systematic difference between evaluations of nature and other objects of this kind. That's true. It's not systematic, but it could be arbitrary, that like it just happens to be a human thing. Now, that would be a question, but like, why are some of our things good even though they're bad? Like, they're instrumentally good, but like Josephine says, there may be good and bad parts of us, and that's why we recognize that it has aesthetic value, because it's recognizing a bad part of humans, but that may be good art. So that's not a systematic answer, but that just would be some reason why humans are different from other things, because we are interested in ourselves. Okay, thirdly, the instrumental view cannot explain a perceived asymmetry between bad and good works of art. Though we would say that something can be good because it is bad, we wouldn't say that something is bad because it is good. The instrumental view does not predict this kind of asymmetry, however, since just as a finely bad artwork can be instrumentally good, so can a finely good artwork be instrumentally bad. So you could have a very, very beautiful or impressive work of fascist art. And so it could be so good that it inspires people to become fascists and support fascist dictators. That would be instrumentally bad, but it was such an amazing work of art. And I know we got some people who don't like religion here in chat, and you could think, well, maybe there would be some such religious art that would inspire people to become religious, but they think religion is bad, so that would be an instrumentally bad thing. That the artwork was so great, so inspiring that it made people follow a religion. So I'm not sure that like this is It doesn't predict this kind of asymmetry, but that doesn't mean that the asymmetry actually is like there may not be an asymmetry. This author may just have a lack of thinking, like a lack of creativity on this one. Like, I think that's entirely possible that we could have something that was like really good art, but like inspiring really terrible acts. Okay. You don't even like the first Legion. Yeah, and why would you do it again with the Religion? I don't know. Good question. Maybe write some philosophy on that. Alright, continuing the paper. What these observations suggest is that accounting for the value of bad art merely in terms of instrumental value fails to account for any distinctive value in bad art. The instrumental view can perhaps more plausibly be seen as an eliminativist view of the value in bad art. There is no distinctive value in bad art, which people are talking about when they claim that something is so bad that it is good. I think this is fair. There's nothing uniquely special about being instrumental. It just is pointing at something else. Insofar as people engage with bad art, they are either doing so for instrumental reasons, enjoying a guilty pleasure, or suffering from something similar to aesthetic acrasia. However, this view seems to be phenomenologically inaccurate since it clashes with how appreciators of bad art describe their experiences. While it could be argued that such appreciators are mistaken or worse, it is a significant cost to the view that entails that the people who otherwise seem to be no worse aesthetic appreciators than others are in fact irrational or confused. Roger, as propaganda has been a thing for a few minutes. Yeah, exactly. And so I just feel like this author has not, like, they missed some obvious examples with like art as propaganda, and propaganda, of course, could be supporting some terrible stuff. Josephine says morally supposedly bad art would still often be an expression and can be learned from. Yeah, and so that would fit in with this instrumentalist view that maybe say something supporting like bad murder or whatever, like really bad murders. It's like, okay, like what's it called? We were reading something last time on the terrorist acts, and artists were treating them as like these sort of artistic acts that change the world. And so that would be morally bad. A terrorist bombing that you sort of like, it changed the way we perceive the world, and it would be an expression, but it can be learned from. So that would be the sort of thing. So we were talking about that last stream. But like, yeah, so I feel like this author has missed some of these examples. Yeah, Vipers, malevolent creativity. Exactly. Okay. In the following, the author will put the instrumental view aside and focus on different approaches to aesthetic value and whether they can account for the putative, non-instrumental aesthetic value in bad art. Given the discussion of the instrumental view, we can state 3 desirable features of such an account. 1. The account should explain how something can be good because it is bad. 2. The account should explain why the phenomenon seems to be peculiar to aesthetic evaluations of art. Natural objects and events do not seem to be candidates for being good because they are bad. And 3. The account should explain why, quote, it is good because it is bad seems more plausible than it is bad because it is good. Okay, these features should not be taken as desiderata of an acceptable view. Perhaps one or more of these features may merely seem to be desirable, and perhaps this appearance can be explained by some other means. However, if an account of the value in bad art fails to account for any of these features, then it is difficult to see what reason there could be to favor such an account over the instrumental view. Yeah, so these are, again, not loving this author's argumentation in this section, but they do have a point here. Like, it feels like the instrumental view is maybe an okay overview to have, but it's not very specific about, oh wow, that's good because it is so bad that like it kind of has its own thing going on. Instrumentally, you don't learn anything by saying, well, it's instrumentally good, but that's not explanatory. You want to know why something is good because it's so bad. Yeah, and that's the same thing with the malevolent creativity. What made those terrorist acts have such an impact on society? Why? What did that do? And to say, well, they were terrorists. They were meant to, put terror out there. Yeah, we know that. What made them so impactful? And that malevolent creativity paper went into that a bit. Okay, so this is a 2024 paper. The other one was from 2020. No, what year was that one? I think it was from a few years ago anyway. So like this paper could be criticized using the paper from last Philosophy Roulette. Because I don't think that was a new paper. Actually, I don't know. Anyway, aesthetic experience. According to a very influential version of Hume's treatment of aesthetics, aesthetic value consists in a tendency to produce a certain kind of experience in observers. A schematic version of the view can be formulated as follows, quote, aesthetic experience. X is aesthetically good if and only if X tends to produce experience E in subjects S under condition C, and aesthetically bad if and only if it tends to produce E star. Socknow says, it's from 2020. Thank you, Vipers. Socknow says, the quality of art and the quality of ethics that is presented in art as so bad that it is good doesn't mean that the people can get into terrible acts. Like video games can take a look at the Wallenstein, but that doesn't present someone ethically qualifiers, or the terrible granularity quality from the 2000s is fascistic, whereas their instrumentals are not up to peak with the rest of the world, and the world bad art can be viewed and appreciated as nostalgia from an instrumental, like playing a PS2, or its elegance you can see from Wolfenstein's marketing. Yeah, but that would still be instrumental, wouldn't it? Like, that would be appreciating something else about the art. Like, if you're talking nostalgia, then people are thinking about themselves, not the work of art. What's it called? Wolfenstein, not Wallenstein. But, yeah. So, but I get your point that you can do terrible things in the video games, but that doesn't actually mean that just because they're morally questionable, that doesn't make them a bad art. That's true. So I agree with that. But that wouldn't explain why we would say, some things are bad. It's not the moral. I think the moral is not what this author is going for here. All right. Yeah. So this account of aesthetic experience, where an artwork is supposed to make some experience, you have some certain experience. This account is one of the leading contemporary theories of aesthetic value. However, proponents of this view often say very little about aesthetically bad, and even less about whether something could be good because of its badness. A straightforward application of the view to the case of good-bad art yields the following analysis. It's such a weird phrase, the good-bad art. If an artwork is bad, then it tends to produce a certain kind of experience E star in a certain kind of observers. If a recognition of this fact tends to produce this experience associated with the aesthetic value E, then there is a sense in which the artwork could be said to be good because it is bad, since it is via the badness of the work which it tends to produce E. Like I've said before to our buddy who was drunk, I will try to get at what you're saying. I'm not so concerned about your English being perfect. I'm trying to get your point, not your exact wording. All right, this analysis of the value of in bad art can be criticized for not being phenomenologically accurate. What it suggests is that the value in bad art is something akin to its tendency to produce schadenfreude, which is at odds with how people who value bad art describe their own experiences. A possible reply is that aesthetic experience involves a second-order judgment or attitude. The experience E involves a judgment about or an attitude towards one experience of an object. On this more sophisticated view, E is not any old pleasure, but has some structure. Mathen, for example, identifies aesthetic pleasure with the pleasure taken in one's contemplation of an object. Yeah, so if you're thinking about some bad art and you're like, okay, it's bad, but you enjoy the thinking about why it's bad, then you get like some enjoyment out of it just the same. Okay, regardless of whether the charge of phenomenological accuracy sticks, there are further problems for this explanation of the value in bad art. First, note that given a more sophisticated view of aesthetic experiences, it is unclear whether there is anything bad about bad art. If E is understood in such a way that Plan 9 can plausibly be said to elicit it, then the conclusion is not that Plan 9 is good because it is bad, but rather it is simply good. This analysis therefore struggles to explain the desirable feature 1. Yeah, you have to say why it's bad. Like why it's bad and why that's good. If you're saying that it's bad and then like down the road it produces a good results, then it's just good. It's just good with a few extra steps. Josephine says there's a visual version of the dissonance used by avant-garde music. Yeah. So yeah, so that's a good point. People might be trying to create a dissonance, but like the argument right here is just that, okay, the dissonance may be initially bad, but it leads to something good. It's just good with more steps. And so that's fair too. Now, if you're judging the avant-garde stuff by, say, classical standards, yeah, then it's just bad. But by aesthetic standards, then the end point is the same. You still enjoy it. So yeah. Okay. Second, the analysis also struggles to explain why the phenomenon is not present in aesthetic evaluations of nature. If goodness in bad art lies in its tendency to produce pleasure taken in one's contemplation of an object, to use Mathen's analysis as an example, then one wonders what the difference is between a case where an object is an artwork and a case where it is a natural object or event. So, I guess the idea here is that maybe there's some poop. And you're like, ew, poop. But then later you're like, oh, that was some really well-formed poop. And you're like, that was like, the ideal poop. And so you're like, well, that was a natural thing that was like heinous at first, but then later it kind of was like the best poop. I don't know. That's weird. But like, maybe this is my job, Aris. I'm trying to break philosophy down for other people. But like, it's what I do. Thank you for laughing. If anyone doesn't know our mod Aristotle, we should give Aris a shout out. Aris is a ethicist and a classical philosopher, and he has fun streams, and you should all go hang out with him. Viper says, in my experience, the artist has to possess an earnest obliviousness about what they're creating. They have to believe it's good. Yeah, now, I hope this author gets to that sort of thing, but a lot of the earnest obliviousness, then it's like, I think that kind of falls into the nostalgia category for me, where people are like looking back at stuff with rose-colored glasses. They're looking at the bad artwork with rose-colored glasses because they feel the earnestness of the creator coming through. They're not judging the work itself anymore. They're kind of judging how it was made. And so, yeah, like, I think that's a real thing, Vipers. But in some sense, I was talking to my buddy about one of these, the Neil Breen films, and he hates Neil Breen. He's like, I don't care if he's earnest, the movies are bad. But he's like a real film buff. And so it's like, he's like, I don't give a fuck. He has no sense of like Neil Breen trying to do something. He don't give a fuck about Neil Breen. So it's like, he cares about the movies. Okay. So again, I'm not sure that this natural angle is going to work 100% of the time for this author, but it does seem to be the case that, well, maybe you can get aesthetic enjoyment out of something that we might find heinous. Like, what's it called? Say we, nature red in tooth and claw. Say you see like one animal tearing another animal apart. you might think that that's kind of a heinous scene, but then again, you might also appreciate the animal, like the sort of like the glory of the kill or something. I could see that being part of it, like a really violent act, but you can, again, like the terrorist act, you can sort of appreciate like sort of the majesty of nature through that. Frank says, by Ernest, I thought the Vipers meant the artist was bad at creating art. The good, bad art is more accidental than good art. I don't think that's what Vipers were saying, but Vipers can, of course, clarify. You're tearing me apart, Lisa. Yeah. So, if that's what Vipers meant, Frank, then that would be saying that the artist got lucky by making bad art that happened to be good. I feel like it. They're bad at creating the art, but it was accidental. And I don't think that's what, like, it was just luck. I don't think that's the point. It's that people like it because they feel like the artist was really trying to do something great. And even though it's terrible, like, you can sort of feel how their vision for it was like sort of pure. Sockdown says it's like saying General Hospital is bad filmography because it was kind of plastic and cheap from the outside, but it could immerse you in an experience. Yeah, I think that's part of it, Sockdown. Frank says, I mean, the artist earnestly tried to make good art and failed, but then people found things to like even though it was done badly. Again, Vipers can clarify, but that would just be saying that they actually did do a good job. Their execution wasn't where it should be, but it was still good in some sense. So I don't think that's what this author is going for either right here, where they were still somewhat good. Just it was not up to normal standards. I feel like there's something else going on. Tell me if I'm wrong. Okay, so finally this analysis also struggles with the asymmetry, feature 3. The mere fact that aesthetic experience is structured in a certain way does not help us explain why something can be so bad that it is good, but not so good that it is bad. Frank says it doesn't mean that they did a good job though. If you take actions that should have lost but lucked into a win, that doesn't mean you are good. That's fair. But then why did they win? Like, what happened then? They just got lucky. So they got aesthetically lucky. And that's why we like it. I feel like we are judging on... Wait, I got my desktop out here. That would be... I feel like that's not what we're getting at right here. Because it's like if you get lucky and you win, then it feels like you actually had something good. Why did you win in the end then? Like, what was it? Now, aesthetic luck. Okay, so everything just kind of fell together in the right way. That feels like at that point, the final judgment would be that it was good, not that it was bad. Like, even though, like, it was a comedy of errors that made it good, it was like, well, never look at how the sausage is made. The sausage, you don't want to know how the sausage was made. You just know that it was the end goal of the end sausage was good. So I still don't think that's what the author is going for here, because in the end, you'd say that it was inherently good in spite of the people that created it. So it would be in spite of the creator, it was still good. And then the creator would be bad. That's what I think's going on. All right. An alternative approach. What would Viper say? Viper says, I'm thinking of the difference between The Room and Sharknado. Good bad art can't be self-aware because I think it just comes across as cynical. It's not that that it's good on accident, it's that the bad becomes entertaining because of the schadenfreude. Yeah. Okay. So that's what at least Vipers meant. Alright, an alternative approach, which does not require any special kind of aesthetic experience, is to relativize aesthetic value to interpretations. The idea is that the aesthetic value of an artwork is relative to interpretations of the work. Applied to art which is so bad that it is good, the analysis could go as follows. When confronted with a work of art, we might realize that it is terrible, given the mostly easily accessible interpretation. This realization may prompt us to look for another interpretation which makes sense of the work and which makes it better. A work could thus be said to be good because it is bad, since its badness under one interpretation prompts a different interpretation under which it is better. Furthermore, this view arguably explains why the phenomenon seems to be peculiar to bad art. One salient difference between artworks and mere things is that the former, but not the latter, are open to interpretations. Can this view explain why there seemed to be an asymmetry between good and bad art? Extrapolating from Goldman, one could argue that interpretations can be more or less acceptable, and one condition of an acceptable interpretation is that it makes an artwork better. An interpretation of an artwork under which the work would be worse would therefore not be acceptable. Yeah, so if like we're expecting the critics to interpret the artwork, and then the critic is being like, oh, this is the way it should be interpreted, it's very smart, but like if you just look at it, it's bad, but there's like a smart way to look at it, I feel like the critic's doing all the work at that point, though. But like, yeah, I am sure the authors are going to say this. How successful this view will depend on the norms for acceptable interpretations. Goldman, for example, gives pride of place to the creator's intentions, when choosing interpretations, and he explicitly argues that the value of a work would have under different interpretations can be of secondary importance. Yeah, so if you're looking at what the critics say, that's cool, but like basically the artwork can't entirely be separated from the creator. This is bad news for anyone who wishes to ground the value of bad art in different interpretations of the work, since the interpretation under which good art is bad is very often the one which is close to the author's intention. Plan 9, for example, is arguably intended to be an exciting and thrilling sci-fi adventure, but it fails spectacularly at exactly that. To reach an interpretation under which Plan 9 is good, we would likely have to see it in a way that would have been quite alien to Ed Wood. I haven't seen Plan 9, so I don't even know what this is. I'm starting to lose it early today. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, but we're mostly through this, or halfway through this. Aesthetic properties. An alternative approach to aesthetic value is to focus on aesthetic properties. Aesthetic properties have for a long time been central in aesthetics, yet in analyses of aesthetic value they are often sidelined by views which ground aesthetic value in experiences. Okay. Accounting for the value in bad art by pointing to some good-making property of bad works has some initial appeal. The aesthetic value of a thing plausibly depends on the aesthetic properties of that thing. Things can be graceful, harmonious, decadent, disordered, and so on, and these properties make a thing either aesthetically good or bad. Too much time on Penn Island? Yeah, no, it was just I got pissed off at the end of the day, and that just like, tired me out, but I appreciate you sticking around. Aesthetic properties are therefore plausible candidates for being the value-making properties of a thing. The relation between aesthetic properties and aesthetic value can however be expected to be quite irregular. The fact that a pop song is harmonious might make it good, but the harmoniousness of a punk song might make it bad. Given the irregular connection between aesthetic properties and aesthetic value, it might be argued that bad art is good because of some aesthetic property which is usually good making. For example, the nonsensical script and unconvincing props of Plan 9 would not be part of the explanation of what makes the film bad, but rather part of the explanation of what makes it good. However, this simple account fails on all three of the desirable features. Most notably, explanations of this kind tend to lose track of the badness in bad art. Where is the aesthetic badness in Plan 9 if the features which would normally be bad making are in fact good making? To capture the badness in bad art and how a bad work may be good because it is bad, it might be suggested that the value of a work of art is an organic whole. Oh God, why? Okay. The value of a work of art as a whole is not the mere sum of the value of its proper parts. On this approach, a finally good part could, in theory, make a negative contribution to the value of a work as a whole, thus having negative contributive value. The value in bad art could then be instances of art where the parts are finally aesthetically bad, but where the contributive value of at least some of the parts is positive, making the final parts of the whole less bad than the final value of the sum of its parts. Zock now says, bad art could be done on purpose to push the comical, like, for example, you can see the artist's intellect from more deeper meaning, like you have cartoonish costumes that make a person look bad, but you can laugh and feel so much compassion. The art gives a person saying, don't take life seriously, or strictly give you the freedom to breathe, but in this, the goodness from this sort of bad instrumentals. Zock, now, I'd just say that was good art then. If that's exactly what the artist was going for and they achieve it, I wouldn't call it bad. I'd just say that was style at that point. Like, yes, but that would just be way too well done if the artist pulled that off. So it's like, yeah, but like, why would anyone call it bad? you may not agree with their style, but like then it would just be like it was good art, just not for you. Viper says, interesting. Plan 9 from Outer Space is embedded in its entirety on the Wikipedia page for it. Yeah, like South Park is intentionally shitty animation. Yeah, exactly. They're not going for fancy animation. That's not the point. The point is something else. And like the fact that they use this kind of animation for their further purpose makes it on the whole good art. You're not evaluating it on, how their heads come apart when they talk. It's a style choice. It makes it successful art. Exactly. It gave it a unique style. It may not have been fancy, but it was really effective. It was unique and like crazy at the time. Okay. Appealing to organic whole seems to capture the badness in bad art, but the approach struggles to capture the two other desirable features outlined above. Yeah, so this organic whole thing, it says, well, somehow all the shitty pieces came together to make a whole. This is emergent properties. Like, this is the same thing as like, okay, somehow we have consciousness out of all of our like brain stuff, out of the matter. We have consciousness and we can't explain that. So that's just this whole, that's what's going on right here. The goodness is emergent out of all the bad pieces. And so all the pieces are bad, but then somehow the whole thing is good, but it's mysterious. Ara says, like street food, shitty ingredients for a brilliant whole. I mean, are they shitty? Like, they may not be fancy, but are they really shitty ingredients? And also, like, street food, I mean, they may be simple ingredients, but why would you assume that the ingredients are bad in street food? Sometimes they are, but, like, it's how it's cooked. And it's always been that way. I mean, that's what poor people food is. And that's some of our best food is from people who have figured out how to take the worst food that we have and make it delicious. And it's not bad food, it's just not expensive food. So, I mean, I disagree with that one, Aris. Like, what is a pickle except pickling is a preservation device. Like, they had to save their, like, cucumbers and shit over a long time so that people could have food when it wasn't in season. But we've been eating pickles forever now because we like the flavor. But, like, that's poor people food. Like, it's food that you had to save over multiple seasons that would last forever because you couldn't afford anything else. Sockdown says, you are looking at this more from a little sense of the quality of art and the quality of ethics as presented as artists, seeing this as undeniably bad. That's how the author's doing it. They're trying to find out what is undeniably bad about bad art. Where, like, if you are giving the artist too much credit, then it's not bad anymore. And that's what this author is trying to get at here. It's like, what is so bad? What is the badness? And so this is the issue. It's like, you can't assume that there's like a lot of good stuff there because then it would just be good art. Okay. So this, even though I explained what the problem with organic holes is, let's see what the author said. You think that's quite reductionist though? Fair enough. Like, you don't actually have to agree with this author's strategy. But yeah. Like, you could be right. Like, this may be a wrong-headed paper. And that would be fair. I'm not loving the paper. As you see, I'm, like, criticizing it along the way, where I don't think they got all the right examples. I think some of this argumentation is weak. It's not the worst paper. It's just, I think it's got some problems here. All right. First, there's little reason to think that organic holes would only occur in aesthetic evaluations of art and not of nature, for example. Second, this account of the value in bad art begs the question why there seems to be an asymmetry between the goodness in bad art and the badness in good art. If a finally bad part can make a positive contribution, why can't a finally good part make a negative contribution? Yeah, and like we were saying, we had counters examples to this before, so now I feel like they're just like arguing on top of their bad example from earlier. So like this whole argument here is very shaky to me. But like, yeah. It's fine though. Like, again, if you accept their sort of like setup, they're not doing a bad job though. Like, I'm not very angry with this person. I just don't love it. Okay, John Dyke and Matt Johnson have suggested an alternative way of accounting for the value of bad art. And also, yeah, that thing where I just said emergence, they didn't fucking say that. I think that's a really fucking obvious criticism, and they didn't like bring it up right here. Why not? Okay. Sockna says hey, what's up, Adam Fighter? Sockna says because bad is more of a spectrum of negation, like there's no factual basis for an ontology to be bad or something like this. Perhaps, but we have to wait and see what this author says. Like, maybe they're going to get there and then they're going to have a way of presenting that. But, like, I don't want to beg the question against them too soon either, you know? Like, let's see what they say. But, like, I don't want to just say, oh, because they're just going through some theories they think are wrong at the moment. So, they haven't given their positive suggestion yet. All right. At the core of Dyke and Johnson's account is the idea that bad art is good when it constitutes a spectacular failure, and that they are good when they are bizarre. That's fair talk now, yeah. So, okay, so now it's like complete train wreck, and now you've got something new because you were so bad that you became a spectacular failure and became bizarre. So this bizarreness is what's good about it. This property, they suggest, is exemplified when there is a conspicuous discrepancy between the creator's intent and the performance. And this goes to the earnestness that was said before. If they are earnestly trying to make something great and they make something terrible, that's part of this. All right. Good bad art is still bad on the account because the performance is sloppy, disorganized in a bad way, and so on. However, the good in the good bad art is having the higher order aesthetic property of being bizarre, which for its instantiation depends on a discrepancy between intentions of the creator and the creator's performance. Dyke and Johnson's account captures the idea that goodness in bad art depends on the badness. Furthermore, their account explains why the phenomenon is not found with respect to aesthetic evaluations of nature, at least if we assume that nature is not created in the same way as a work of art is created. See, this is clever. This is more like, you know, they were trying for one thing, but they missed so spectacularly that it's kind of like fascinating how bad they fucked up. And so we're not really evaluating the art, we're evaluating the fucked upness. But like there is something to this view. Author says their account has been criticized on several points. However, Stroll argues that the intentions of the artist are not relevant to the work, to the value of the work, and that one can intentionally create good bad art. Stroll supports his claim with examples from film and points out that discovering what Ed Wood really intended with Plan 9 does not seem to be very relevant for our ability to attribute some positive value to the film. Another problem for Dyke and Johnson's view is that it leaves unexplained why there seems to be an asymmetry between good bad art and bad good art. If the discrepancy between intent and performance which makes a work have some good-making property, then one wonders why it is far more common for something to be good because of the discrepancy between great intentions and poor performance rather than modest intentions and great performance. Who has modest intentions? Everyone's like, well, okay, say we're just making Alien, if everyone knows, from 1979, Sigourney Weaver, that crew, Alien, the actors, they were all young, you know, they were happy to be acting. I watched the, 30-year or the 20-year HBO special or the documentary about it. They said they were all like, you know, they thought they were all there to make a B movie. They were like, we're making a B sci-fi movie. We're all young, you know, we're there. We're just like, we're happy to be getting paid as actors. Like, you know, everyone was just like having a grand old time. And so they were thinking they were making a B movie, a shitty thing, and they happened to make something great. Now, you can argue that the writing in Alien is like phenomenal and all sorts of things, but there's what's his name? Tom Skerritt. He was saying everyone thought they were making a B movie, and then the first Alien scene really happened where the guy died. And he said, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you go watch Alien. Like, you have to. It's a classic. But he says, after that happened, we all knew we weren't on a B movie anymore. Whatever it was something else. So, again, I feel like this author is missing examples. They don't, like, there's examples of exactly this, where the people making the movie they thought they were doing something mediocre. They were just happy to get paid. Then they realized they were doing something else, but that was after the fact. And so, like, again, there are examples of this. And so it's like, I feel like a lack of creativity or finding examples. So yeah, I love Alien. And the older I've gotten, the more I love Alien, Aris. Like, I fucking love that movie. And it's just like, it's great. And so it's like, I feel like this author is making these claims, and I just find the claims to be wrong. Like it's like they're just missing examples, and they haven't realized that certain things that everyone assumes to be great, that's not how it was when people went into the project. They thought they were doing something, let's just get paid. Okay. Maybe this isn't this author though, but like this is why people were criticizing this other view of this bizarreness. But still, like this author does not consider the fact that those criticisms are misguided. Anyway. Yeah, Yaphet Kotto said he couldn't sleep for a week after that scene because the actors were not told what was going to happen, and then something crazy happens. The actors weren't told, and it freaked the fuck out of everyone. If you watch the movie, the audio gets weird for like a little cut because people on set started cursing, and so like off-screen people were cursing, and it's like, why are people like cursing that you can't see? But it's like, yeah, it's like this fucked with people's heads. But like I said, no one had any idea that this is what was going to happen. All right. The latter discrepancy could also be ground for higher order properties such as bizarreness, yet bizarreness under such circumstances is rarely good making. That's a fair point. This is fine, this point here. Why is being bizarre aesthetically good? The chest purser scene was a fucking surprise. They didn't tell anybody. Only the actor and the director knew what was going to happen. Everyone else on the scene was only told that something was going to happen. None of them knew. Everyone else was there. They were told something's going to happen. Just be prepared for something and, and just try and stay in character. And it was like people failed. People on the set started fucking cursing. And like everyone was like, those are their legit freaked out reactions. Yeah. Viper says, I think a lot of semantic ambiguity that makes the question intriguing would be cleared by expanding the vocabulary beyond good and bad, entertaining unsuccessful art, and not entertaining unsuccessful art. Fair point. Because this good bad shit that I keep saying is like it's hard to keep track of exactly what they mean. Maybe just one or two more distinctions where they say, when I say good or like beneficial, I mean one thing in the good and beneficial in the other. Like that really wouldn't make this so complicated of a paper. And so like that's a good point. Again, this is a choice on the author's part here about how they presented the work. So yeah. So more gripes. Yeah. Sock now says, yeah, like someone can buy a totaled car from the junkyard and stick it in an art gallery with a donated skeleton for art looking like a crash scene, and there's also some bad art could be promoting going against drunk driving. Sure. Donation proceeds going fundraiser to some anti-drunk driving nonprofit. Is it bad? Yeah. So again, like the concept there, like there was somebody who who taped a banana to the wall and then they sold it for a ton of money. The concept is sometimes what gets people going. Like, and so like you can take even though like the may be a stupid thing, like just taking a crashed car and like placing it in a certain way, that stupid idea may not be so stupid. It may be sort of just the right way to do stuff to get people to donate money. And then all of a sudden it becomes an inspiring piece of art. Again, like it might transcend, like it may have been mediocre, but then it transcended it. So another thing that could happen. Take on a life of its own, Yeah, takes on a life of its own. So like some things could be mediocre or not great, and then somehow it just like grows out of it for whatever reason. Okay. Author continues. A general problem with grounding aesthetic value in aesthetic properties concerns normative aspects of aesthetic value. Aesthetic value, just like other kinds of value, is typically thought to be normatively relevant in some way. If a person fails to respond appropriately to aesthetic value, then that person is making some kind of mistake. However, an account of aesthetic value in terms of aesthetic properties seems to give us little reason to think that aesthetic value is normative. Plan 9 is good because it is bizarre. In what way does this give anyone a reason to engage with the film? Merely pointing to the bizarreness of it does not seem to answer that question. Okay, and this is good. I think I hinted at this earlier. I'm glad the author mentions this. Just because something's bizarre doesn't make it good. Yeah, and then there's, as Viper says, modern art is just pricey shitposting. And to be fair, was a lot of old art anything different back in the day? I don't know. But like, yeah, a lot of it is like, people just bullshitting now. A lot of money getting laundered and things like that. And so, who knows? Aesthetic reasons. To capture the normative aspect of value, it has in recent years become increasingly common for accounts to analyze value in terms of, in terms of reasons. Yeah, 100% the money laundering. Yeah, a lot of it's shit posting and money laundering. I mean, now we've got, doesn't matter. I was gonna say like NFTs, but like it doesn't matter. Because I mean, yeah, I mean that's not even the worst example. Like that might even be a good example. So why is was it the Bored Ape Yacht Club? That art is not great. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's bad. It's like whatever board. It's like generative art, but it captured the moment and the phenomena. Was that meant to be great art? Probably not. But it hopped on the cryptocurrency NFT bandwagon and blew up. And yeah, so like there's money laundering going on, but also a lot of this, and then it became its own moment. Is it going to be remembered as great art in a long time? Probably not. Are some of the Bored Apes going to be worth a lot of money in the future? Maybe still. Like they might still be worth some significant amount of money, even though no one thinks those fucking Bored Ape, like the images of apes, NFTs are worth, like the image doesn't even matter. It's the fucking owning the rights to the fucking code that like is the unique thing that is like the NFT, not even the image. It's the blockchain code or whatever. So it's like, yeah. Oh, Vipers, yeah, the example of Banksy's self-shredding painting. Yeah, I mean, anyone who doesn't know, look that up. Banksy sold one of his works at like a fancy auction for a lot of money, and when the auction ended, Banksy had a shredder built into the wooden frame around the artwork, and the thing just shredded through like all the way down. Yeah. Yeah, Sakna says, yeah, it's owning the encoding of the NFT. Yeah, so you're owning an encoding of the NFT on the blockchain. It's like, okay, but anyone can see the art. The art's not great, but you're owning some blockchain location. Yeah, what's that worth? Well, it's worth something to people who care about cryptocurrency, I guess. And don't get me wrong, I'm pissed. I knew this was going to be a thing. I was looking at cryptocurrency a long time ago. I didn't know about NFTs. I looked at a different technology that was very fucking similar. I could have had one of the fucking early ones. Like I could have. And I missed it because I just didn't look in the right spot. I didn't realize that which direction I went like slightly wrong in this. Like there was something that was doing copyright using the blockchain, and that's basically the same thing. So I was looking at a copyright system that used the blockchain because it would uniquely identify your work of art with a spot on the blockchain. And so you could say, okay, I had that, like, you know, that artwork copyrighted on the blockchain. I missed the right sort of tech, but I was very close. So like I was looking at this for a while ago, but like I am slightly annoyed I missed it. Like I could have had one of the early whatever it was, I forget what the first real one was, but like not the Bored Apes, but like the first one. I could have been over there. Could have had money. Okay, where were we? On this approach, we're talking about aesthetic reasons. On this approach, what it is for something to be valuable is understood in terms of reasons or fittingness. Fittingness, whatever the fuck that is. Such accounts have also been pursued with respect to aesthetic value. A common theme among such views is that to be aesthetically good is to have other properties which provide reasons for actions or attitudes. For example, reasons to appreciate the bearer of such properties for its own sake. For example, if a particular sunset is aesthetically good, I apologize, Cinesemiotics, not my fault, then it has some other properties which provide reasons for appreciating the sunset. Explaining how aesthetic value is normative is trivial on this approach, since what it is for something to be aesthetically good is for there to be reasons to engage with it. However, an analysis of aesthetic value in terms of reasons seems at first glance to be particularly badly placed to account for the value in bad art. On this analysis, in order for something to be good because it is bad, there would have to be reasons to appreciate it because there are reasons not to do so. Though not a formal contradiction, there clearly seems to be a tension here. How could the fact that there are reasons against appreciating Plan 9 for its own sake itself be a reason in favor of appreciating Plan 9 for its own sake? One strategy to answer this question is to introduce an element of agent relativity in the analysis of aesthetic value. An influential idea is that an agent's personal style or taste plays a significant role in aesthetics, and perhaps an analysis of aesthetic value in terms of reasons should take this into account. One way to do so is to relativize the reasons to agents and their personal style. Plan 9 might be good relative to one's style because agents with that style have reasons to appreciate the film, whereas agents with different styles might lack such a reason or might even have a reason against appreciating Plan 9. However, this view faces some by now well-known problems. For example, it does not account for the explanatory relation between the goodness and badness, and it does not explain why the phenomenon is not present in aesthetic evaluations of nature. Another approach suggested by Lopez is to relativize aesthetic value to aesthetic kinds or practices. On Lopez's view, for some feature to be a work, feature of a work to be a merit in that work is for there to be reasons to produce that given feature given some aesthetic category K. This approach might seem especially promising since there is arguably an established category for good bad art. Camp. Yeah, and we were talking about this before, like kitsch or camp or whatever. While this approach can explain why the phenomena seems to be absent in aesthetic evaluations of nature, it struggles to account for the explanatory relation. If Plan 9 is good relative to one category but bad relative to another, then it still needs to be explained how the goodness depends on the badness. And I think this is what I was trying to communicate to Socknow earlier, is that if there's still something good about it, then why are we calling it bad? Like, why? And now you might say camp is a silly category, but it's still a unique category. So like camp is unique in its own like sort of weird way. But that doesn't explain stuff. That's just you defining it to be like that. Yeah. And this is I think what the author is about to say right here. Furthermore, the author says the asymmetry between so bad that is good and so good that is bad will also require some further explanation. If the goodness in Plan 9 amounts to it being good relative to some category but bad relative to another, then why does it seem incorrect to say that the third man is so good that it is bad? The third man is clearly bad relative to camp, but good relative to other categories, and relativizing to aesthetic categories therefore seems to predict that the film is so good that it is bad. Perhaps an even more serious problem is that the view even seems to predict that the third man is so bad that it is good if it is bad relative to camp, but good relative to some other category. What this admittedly brief discussion suggests is that a simple account of aesthetic value based on reasons runs into very similar difficulties as an account based on aesthetic experiences. A reasons-based account has the advantage of being able to explain the normative aspect of aesthetic value, why there are reasons to engage with good art, but it is difficult to identify reasons for engaging with bad art where these reasons depend on the flaws of the work. Okay. So we're getting towards the end here, I think. So hopefully this will get somewhere now. Aesthetic engagement. In Why It Is Okay to Love Bad Movies, Matthew Stroll offers an account of the value in bad art, which does not neatly fit in any of the approaches discussed so far. Stroll argues that the value in bad art is that it enables a kind of valuable engagement with the work. The goodness of Plan 9 on Stroll's view lies in how people collectively relate to the work and what the ways in which they as a collective can form certain valuable relationships with each other centered on Plan 9. Okay, so this is a community building on, say, like we all hate this one thing for all the bad reasons, but because we all hate it in the same way, then it functions as a locus of community building. Maybe? Okay. Stroll's account can plausibly be seen as a version of a more general approach to aesthetic value which focuses on aesthetic engagement. Very broadly, the idea is that aesthetic value should be understood in terms of the activities they enable. For example, Nguyen argues that the value of aesthetic appreciation lies primarily in the process of arriving at an aesthetic judgment, not in having reached a correct verdict. Works which offer ample grounds for aesthetic reasoning or figuring it out are to that extent good. An alternative account of the engagement involved is that of Riggle 2022 and Stroll 2022. On their account, works are good because they enable people to express and develop their aesthetic individuality, aesthetic freedom, and to engage in joint aesthetic activities with others. Yeah, so these are like their toys is what it is that these bad things turn into like what I'm doing when we read bad philosophy. We make hay with them in a social way on Twitch. Okay. But aren't we doing instrumental again? Doesn't this bring us right back to the instrumental thing? It's not for the aesthetics of the artwork, it's for the engagement in community, which is an instrumental good. Like, isn't that right? Like, am I wrong here? Like, I don't know. Like, wouldn't this just be instrumental, this engagement account? Okay, whether the engagement account can explain the goodness in bad art will likely depend on how valuable engagement is spelled out. However, there are some problems with the engagement account which are independent of such particulars. Seems right to ours. Okay, maybe the author is going to get there right now. I don't know. An immediate problem for the engagement account is that it seems to make the value of bad art instrumental. Yeah, okay. So, you know, good job on the author. They set me up. I was set up. There we go. Sockna says, just because the popular stance is that art is bad doesn't mean there aren't a couple of oddballs that think the art shows some beauty. That's fair too. So that would be a Mysterian's view of it, that we all are sort of fascinated by it, but we don't know why. Everything's bad, but there's something like that's actually good and only some people recognize. You know, that's a mysterious view, like, and not that your view is mysterious. It's that the artwork is mysterious in some way, and that could be a case here. I don't think the author has covered that yet, but that's also that we're all making. No, this would be that we're all making a mistake about the art, and they kind of covered that earlier, but I don't think they really covered what you just said. So that's interesting. Stroll's version in particular faces this challenge since he identifies the value in bad art with enabling valuable engagement, which at least on the face of it seems to ascribe merely instrumental value to bad art. Additionally, it can be questioned whether the engagement account is plausible as a theory of aesthetic value of things. Nguyen's version seems to identify a more general feature of human cognition, which we think is of some value. In general, we seem to value anti-dogmatism. It is epistemically better to believe something on the basis of independent reasons than on mere authority. Viper says, I don't think that's right. I think it's the opposite, that the artifice is on full display. Okay. So if the artifice is on full display, then what's good about the art then? That the artifice is on full display, but what makes... Okay, so it's bad because it's just all artifice, but then what's good about it? I mean, yeah, but what's good about that? I'm not sure. So it's like what would be good in that case? Okay, a worry is therefore that Nguyen identifies an epistemic value which is relevant for forming aesthetic judgments, but not an aesthetic value of things. Similarly, Wriggle's and Stroll's versions seem to capture the plausible idea that art can play an important role in a good life. A life lived in a community where people can express their individuality and freedom is plausibly a better life than one in a community where this is not the case. Socknow says, yeah, it is like going to something we can talk about, like people love video games are popular and they are good. Doesn't mean that there aren't tabletop RPG players that play D&D. Yeah. So, yeah, like there's other stuff. Viper says, it's the same hit as when you feel clever for anticipating the punchline of a, joke. So... that would also be the instrumental, though, because that would, if it wasn't the engagement, it would be the secondary, like meta level, feeling clever, and it's not actually the art; it's that you figured it out, and that would be something else. So it would still fall down to the instrumental, but yeah, you might be right about this other view about it. So yeah, exactly right, Aaron. Okay. Furthermore, the engagement count seems to overvalue bad art. Stroll's view can explain what is good about Plan 9, that it enables valuable engagement, but one wonders what the badness of Plan 9 consists in. This is a pertinent question if the account is supposed to explain how something can be good because it is bad. And there's a fair criticism. Just because everything is bad, a lot of bad stuff just gets ignored. Some of it we like for some reason, and that's what is supposed to be being explained here. There are different ways to meet these challenges. Stroll argues that expressions such as "it is so bad that it is good" should not be taken literally. Yeah, and so now we're getting back to Socknow's criticism, like, what do you actually mean here? Or are you just, like, using these terms like, you know, metaphorically or something. The badness of Plan 9, for example, is merely conventional badness. That is, a work which is so bad that it is bad according to conventional standards, but they are not in fact bad. This reply merely reinforces the problem, since it is to assert that there is not really anything bad about the art that is so bad that it is good. A different approach is to argue that the badness of Plan 9 consists in its failure to enable valuable engagement based on established sci-fi conventions. In this way, the film is a failure and a bad film. Plan 9 is, however, successful as a comedy or a satire because it enables valuable engagement, albeit not by conforming to the established sci-fi conventions, but rather by breaking them. There is therefore a way in which Plan 9 is bad. This suggestion is open to the objection mentioned above that enabling valuable engagement instrumentalizes the value in bad art and aesthetic value in general. If the value of Plan 9 is that it enables some other valuable thing, then it seems that the value of Plan 9 is not final. Putting that objection aside, it can also be noted that the view has some similarities with the relativization of aesthetic value and seems to face similar challenges. If Plan 9 is good in one way but bad in another, then one wonders what the explanatory connection between its badness and goodness is. A possible reply is that on the suggested view, the value in Plan 9 partly consists in its breaking established sci-fi conventions. It is because it is bad in this way that it is good in another way. However, note that what makes Plan 9 bad is the failure to enable valuable engagement via established conventions, and it is doubtful whether it is this fact which makes it good. What arguably makes it good is the fact that it breaks established conventions, not the breaking them fails to enable valuable engagement. It is therefore not correct to say that Plan 9 is bad because it is good, since it is not the badness, strictly speaking, which makes it good. Sock, no, some of this feels like bag of words, not like tons of straight, not enough regex. Like, yeah, well, that's what Vipers was saying earlier, that the flat use of bad and good is... Like, this is sometimes where analytic philosophy does help. You should have used a few different terms, or like good one, bad one, so that like if there's only a few of them, you could say, hey, look, this is bad because of like this more specific badness, and this was good because of this more specific goodness. Just saying good and bad is a little infuriating here. I mean, that's right. Okay, a final worry is that this convention of the engagement account will be too inclusive, since any innovative work will count as good because it is bad on this view. Innovative works often break with established norms and can be partly good because of it. Some innovative works therefore seem to fit the description of works which are good because they are bad, since they enable valuable engagement partly in virtue of breaking established norms. However, this seems to make the category of good-bad art too inclusive. Ira says, I think it's the aestheticians getting in the way here. They like the plays on good, bad, and bad, good, but I'd rather be clear in philosophy than cutesy. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. I feel like they were trying to make this engaging and cutesy, and in the end, it just made it confusing. Sockness is well-defined terms. It doesn't matter what school or continental or analytic defined terms. Yeah, and this is what Ara says. They went for cutesy as opposed to being good philosophers, and that's not cool. Like, unfortunately, philosophy isn't cute. Like, it would be better if philosophy was more fun, and it's not. But this is why. Because if you try to make something, good, bad, and bad, good, it just ends up getting you get like all confused, and it's just like headache going on here. It's like, this is why I feel like I'm a little angry in general today, a little disengaged, but this is the problem, is that I keep having to like, what is keeping all the words straight? And they're not even using big words in this paper, but what they are doing is this just sort of constant good, bad, bad, good, good, bad, good. And it's hard to keep on top of everything. Okay. One possible development of the engagement account could be to distinguish between the value in bad art on the one hand and the alleged phenomenon of art being so bad that it is good on the other. Many of the problems for the engagement account and other views as well seem to stem from trying to account for the latter, whereas it seems much easier to account for the former. The price one pays, however, is phenomenological. To lovers of bad art, it is the bad acting, the incoherent script, and the unconvincing props which make Plan 9 so great. Insofar as we wish to save this appearance, it seems that we have no recourse but to explain how Plan 9 is good because it is bad. Hey, what's up, K-Pars? Does making philosophy fun make it bad bad, bad good, good bad, or good good? Yes. But as I was saying earlier in stream, like trying to make philosophy engaging in this way, I'm trying to get like some interesting ideas, some like cute, like good ideas, not necessarily cutesy, but like, make it something that everyone can talk about. But like this constant like shifting of what is good and bad here makes it very hard to like pin them down. Okay. Further research. In this paper, the author has sketched how different approaches to aesthetic value could attempt to explain how something can be good because it is bad. The overview has, I hope, indicated several areas where further research could yield interesting results for aesthetics and value theory as disciplines. First, bad art is a fruitful area for further development of the theory of aesthetic value. There are several challenges in this area. Can there be an explanatory connection between aesthetic badness and aesthetic goodness? How can we account for the value of bad art without overvaluating it? That is, without losing sight of the obvious flaws of the work. The views sketched here could no doubt be developed further, and while each of these views faces certain challenges, it is not obvious that these cannot be overcome. Alright, so Stockton says, I think it's quite ugly, not gonna lie. If you're trying to play cute in philosophy is like crocheting an ugly sweater that looks half complete, has no fit on the body. Yeah, I think that's part of it. This feels like they could have narrowed, like they could have tightened it up in some way. It's like they tried to make an ugly sweater, but they didn't finish the sweater. Like this feels in some sense an incomplete work of art here. But let's get to finish this up and then we can review it at the end. Did you know that sheep can only tell bad jokes? No, I didn't know that, Vipers. Second, exploring the value in bad art raises the question about how different kinds of values relate to aesthetic value. This is an especially pertinent question if it turns out that an eliminativist approach to the value in bad art is the most promising one. If there is no final aesthetic value in art, what kinds of other values can artwork instantiate, and can these instantiations be explained by aesthetic badness? And I think this is actually not bad. Like, what else is going on? Maybe something else is going on, like we were talking about last time with the malevolent artworks, where you were created like terrorists were changing society by making a spectacle. Okay, finally, further research into the value of bad art can be illuminating for the debate on aesthetic reasons, norms, and rationality. If there's no non-instrumental aesthetic goodness in bad art, can bad art still play an important role in an aesthetic life? Okay, and that's the end of this paper. Let's give it a review. As if anyone who's in chat now, please feel free. You can use the emotes you see in chat. They're Better TV emotes. You don't need to, like, if you have the Better TV extension installed or like one of the other emote helpers, you can see them. Otherwise, you just got to use the text. Brain dance, spelling, and capitalization do matter here. If it had fun ideas that make the brain dance, give it a brain dance. Nog screen for existential artistic drama. I mean, we were talking art today. Nog Ouroboros, deep ancient ideas. Nog knife for slicing and dicing arguments. Nog navel gazing only for academics. Nog turd, all style, no substance, still poop underneath. And Nog grapes for big claims that shoveled up. You can also use the global vote yay, vote nay from Twitch, and my vote meh. Note, I make a overall score. Anything in the green makes it go up. Anything in the red makes it go down. And the vote meh actually pushes everything to the beginning. Aristotle gave it a knife and a meh. And K-Pars gave it a navel gazing and a meh, and Vipers gave it a scream, a grapes, and a meh. I'm completely agreeing with like all of this. Like, it had a little bit of everything in this. I feel like it was a little bit all over the place. Granted, this was more of a survey paper, which is fine, but it still didn't feel very tight. Like the constant shifting between good, bad, just like it was just they were trying to be analytic with their arguments. They were trying to talk about like other philosophies, like K-Par says. They were trying to talk about art, but I just like, yeah. That's how it went. Socknell, yeah, I gave it a turd, a grapes, and a nay. Vardern gave it a turd, a knife, and a meh. Yeah, I'm with you folks on this one. I find this paper to be kind of like grapes. Like, I was hoping for a lot more, and it didn't live up to its... like, there were examples chat gave, I gave, that I felt like this author missed. They weren't even hard examples, like, to find, I feel like. I mean, I gave the alien example where people started off thinking they were making crappy art and made great art. There was the terrorist acts, which we might not consider artworks, but we just read a paper from 2020 that outlined how artists really did think of terrorist acts in this way. So these are like examples in the like literature. This is stuff that's in the like general knowledge that could have been used here. And I felt like maybe this isn't what people talk about in aesthetics. I mean, I'm not an esthetician, but I feel like just a lot of opportunities missed. So yeah, I'm going to go with the grapes. You know what? We're going to give this 2 grapes because, yeah. Also, oh, why am I not getting, oh, I'm misspelling my own. There. So we're going to go with grapes in that. I should also give it a Nog Scream. It did try to do some artistic drama here also. So, but this is sort of a disappointing paper. Like, it kind of had a lot of stuff it could have done, but like, I also kind of want to give it a brain dance. It did give me some, like, I haven't gone over this. I have a soft spot for like these papers on ideas that are under discussed. So like having bad art. Like, I haven't seen a paper on bad art. This is not a bad topic for a paper. It is a good topic. So they're also going to get... Should I give them a brain dance? I don't even know. Roger says, I was looking forward to being torn apart as a bad artist.